Okay, so our next session here, I'd like to welcome Ben and Charles to the stage. We always like to again get a little perspective on the luxury market. So again it's our pleasure to welcome these two gentlemen, and let me get the clicker here, and I'm going to give that to you. Let's just kind of start, with some, introductions here. So, Ben, please, introduce yourself, and we'll go to Charles.
Sure. Great to be here today. So I'm Ben. I'm one of the co-founder of Glopal. We are basically, let's say, a software company specialized in cross-border, and we believe in a few things. One is that brand, image, and tone of voice are key, and you can only achieve that with what we call a full localization, which means translation as well. And we built a software that helps creating local sites in a very short time. And we also believe that at some stage, brands can start with the merchant of record model, but will outgrow it. And when you outgrow it, you want basically to retake the buyer experience in-house and make sure that you run really the cross-border business yourself, recreating the brand image that usually are key for the brand, and making sure that the buyer experience is the one you want, and that you have designed domestically, but that is also adapted to the region you are targeting. And we're happy also to have Charles, who is one of our great customer, talking for Balmain.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ben. So yes, my name is Charles, and I've been launching e-commerce websites for luxury brands for the last 12 years. And my job is quite simple. CDOs or CEOs are calling me and telling me, Charles, we need an e-commerce website. We have nothing, and it's urgent. That's always this simple, same brief. So I guess if you have ever been to Dior.com, Laprairie.com, Sisley, Pierre Fabre a long time ago, GM Weston, and of course Balmain, you have seen my work for the last decade.
Great. And so before we get into more of the Balmain story, Ben, give us paint a picture for how's the luxury market doing? Obviously, when big markets like China, where again the global luxury market depends on them. China is difficult right now. What's that doing to the luxury market, and how is that manifesting in Europe and other markets?
Yeah, there is. So basically, China was the biggest driver towards the last 5 to 10 years, especially in the luxury sector. So what we see today is that China is more slowing down, at least not for each and every brand, but for most of the brands. And there is a lot of brands that are now heavily targeting the fastest growing market, which are usually Middle East. There is a lot of demand for luxury brands in Middle East. It has always been the case, but it's getting bigger and bigger. And as well, there is a lot of development in Asia, meaning Asian country, but also, Southeast Asia and Japan, Korea, where there is a lot of demand, which can, for some brands, compensate the drop in China. Not for all, but some are even doing even better, and especially in Middle East.
Well, that's great. Please, if we'd like to kind of jump into a little bit more of the Balmain story.
On finit par dire que je suis presque aussi souvent en Amérique qu'en France. Je l'ai invité et Beatrice Stein m'a permis de rencontrer beaucoup de gens internationaux.
Un grand couturier parisien, Pierre Balmain, donne un cocktail en l'honneur des acheteurs américains qui viennent cueillir le chic parisien.
Nous vendons à l'Amérique énormément de nos robes.
Vous allez de nouveau repartir pour les États-Unis.
Je pars pour New York, flanqué de plusieurs représentants de ma maison.
Thank you, Ben. I will be a bit quick about Balmain globally to focus more on the US. So, as you saw, the Maison was founded in 1945. We are more, of course, focused on fashion and accessories, mostly women ready-to-wear. And Olivier Roustin joined us 12 years ago. And since then, the brand is going crazy well and was then acquired by Mayhoola 8 years ago now, a Qatari fund. And so let's go back about the US. We are often told that luxury is quite a recent story on the American market. Sincerely, I think that's not true, especially for French brand. We have a huge history with our American customers. Pierre Balmain was one of the pioneers, and even more recently about e-commerce. Hermès, they launched their first e-commerce website in 2000, so 23 years ago. And imagine that, for example, some brands like Goya are not even online yet. So yeah, we have a large history with the US, and Jim mentioned China before. I think only the happy few now of luxury brands have this balance between the US and China. That small brands are still connected and even depend on the US market. I know that Jim is a bit disappointed because I haven't brought so many figures today, but you can easily guess that as Balmain has 20 flagship stores and now 8 are in the US, that my traffic is done in the US. My biggest VIP are in the US, so you can guess what is my biggest market, online or offline.
Great, so you had this call. They call you and say, hey, Charles, we don't have much of a digital experience, so can we create it? Can you tell us where you were, like around 2020, before you joined Balmain and you operate that transition?
Sure. So Balmain had fully externalized the website and logistics, customer service, everything to Yoox Net-a-Porter. And this situation is becoming more and more complicated for luxury brands not handling the complete chain of digital activities. You saw also that with the Kering Group that left also Yoox Net-a-Porter. And Balmain was also selling is still selling on Farfetch, but it was extremely manual, meaning that we were receiving orders in Farfetch. We had to go in the back office, print all the stuff, and then retype everything in SAP directly. So it was crazy complicated. So Balmain CDO, IT director, and CEO tell me, Charles, it cannot continue like this. We have to automate and get in control of everything. And it was the top priority of the company.
Okay, so you had everything like patchwork style and manual style, and then things still other were coming through, so you had to put a priority on digitalization and taking the control over it, right?
Exactly.
So where are you today, or what is what was the scope of this project?
Well, as I said, we were already deployed on Yoox Net-a-Porter, so we were able to ship worldwide. So the important thing was to keep this service worldwide, and thanks to Glopal, we did it, and we will detail it a bit later. Then I was talking about marketplaces. The thing was to automate them because we were already live on Farfetch, and then we were able to launch 5 more marketplaces. Now we are live on 24S, Yoox, Minto, Galeries Lafayette, and one is missing, and Printemps soon.
Great. So maybe you can drive us through the different channels you are using to sell your product and why those channels are important.
Okay, well, it's pretty classic. Of course, we have our stores. We also have a lot of wholesalers. Then Balmain.com, and as I said, marketplaces. And as you can see on the PowerPoint, it's pretty classic. The stores are driving the best AOV and UPT. People are coming in the store to try very expensive pieces, especially women ready-to-wear. They take some time to try it and to buy it. On Balmain.com, it's a bit different. We sell a lot of accessories, a lot of sneakers, less expensive product, but we do a lot more orders. That's a completely different behavior. And marketplaces, it's a mix. It's more like Balmain.com, but still the AOV can be interesting on these kind of platforms.
And Charles, just speaking of some of those key metrics, right? The last slide talked about the key metrics. Even when it's the #1 priority in the company, was it difficult to educate the leadership team on these are the metrics that are important?
Not at all, because the CEO was implicated at the beginning of the project. He was the sponsor. So when he says something, it's applicated immediately. It's harder to do this in bigger companies. For example, at LVMH, for example, at Celine, I never saw the CEO one time on the project. On the opposite, Jean-Jacques Guével at Balmain was there at every steering committee. So he's taking decision, reviewing the KPIs, and validating everything.
That's great.
I think still it's the biggest channel, right, of sales. So CEO is probably has to be pretty involved in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Balmain.com is the worldwide flagship. So it's the first thing you will look at if you look for a Balmain product before going to store. So.
Maybe you can drive us through a few of your metrics or a few more. You mentioned some points, but what is the e-commerce looking like at Balmain.com?
Well, still pretty classic. Of course, most of the traffic is going through mobile. But people are buying more expensive pieces on desktop. And also the conversion rate is better on desktop. And for the rest, yes, on mobile, people buy accessories, T-shirts, all this kind of stuff. But when you are going on expensive pieces, people go to store or on the desktop.
Yeah, that's fairly common, but I think you get a nice rate of mobile visit, which is slightly above the average.
Well, for luxury, it's classic. I'm not an expert for.
Yeah, a lot of people are browsing just for checking new items and stuff. Okay, so, I mean, we talked about this digitalization and you went global from day one. So can you tell us more why cross-border is so important at Balmain?
Well, first thing, we were already delivering worldwide with YNAB, and we had to keep this level of service that was mandatory. We cannot deceive our customers. So yes, thanks to Glopal, we deployed everything. After the go-live, we launched first the US, and then in the couple next month, we deployed Europe and then Asia seamlessly, because we were taking back one shop from Yux, keeping the rest, etc., etc. But we did everything in 2 months. That's a great success. And yes, exporting for French brand, it's mandatory in luxury. I put this example. I discovered recently that Cognac exports 97% of its production, and mostly here in the US. I also discovered this. And yes, most of my customers are in the US, in Asia, in Middle East. Of course, we deliver easily in EU. There is no border, but my customers, the majority is not there. So cross-border is mandatory, and it has to be seamless. We had, for example, bad experience with Instagram and TikTok to deliver, because they also propose now to shop online. The problem is they don't have any tax and duties calculation. They just do basic US tax calculation, meaning that every time we were shipping something, the customs were asking the customers to pay the tax and duties, and it was terrible for the brand experience. So maybe that's a next good challenge for Glopal, to talk with these guys, if you can.
Sounds like an interesting one.
And of course, shipping everything from France, meaning that I don't have to invest in warehouses everywhere because it's extremely costly. Physical store, you can imagine how much is it to build a flagship store for a luxury brand. And at last but not least, if you don't export, your wholesalers would do it on marketplaces. I saw an example recently from one of my past customers, Isabelle Marant. They are not selling on Farfetch, and now all the new collection is available on Farfetch because one of their Italian wholesalers is selling it. Simply, that's crazy, but it's happening.
Yeah, okay. Or the brand image can slip through and be managed by someone else. Great. So then you're going into that great project. What were the key business goals that Balmain had going through this digitalization project?
Well, like you said, of course, delivering perfectly cross-border, and then offering an omnichannel experience. Meaning that thanks to Glopal, for example, now I have 2 warehouses, one in France, one in the US, and I can reallocate automatically and recalculate tax and duties immediately. Let's imagine something. I was supposed to ship something from France. So thanks to Glopal, we calculated tax and duties. And then for any reason the product is not available, I can reallocate on the US, deduct, thanks to Glopal, the duties, just taxes, and then deliver it to the customer seamless. He doesn't see the difference. Yeah. So crazy level of service. And of course, for the rest, luxury customers are expecting a very accurate delivery. And so thanks to my integration with Glopal and my shipping partners, I can easily do it.
Great. Yeah, I think, let's try to spend a bit of more time on, your, so we've been working together for a few years. What do you think are the key things that have made you, work with us?
Well, sincerely, I think your API was never done since the last 2 years, firstly. I never had a technical issue. You have pre-built integration with many warehouses, for example, with Kuhn in Europe, and then we had to build this integration with the warehouse in the US. But it's 2 API calls. It took us 1 month, so perfect. And then, like I said before, I can reallocate easily between the stores, between the warehouses, seamlessly, and that's extremely important to optimize my stocks. And I think we're going to talk about it later. The B2B2C optimization is one of your key features, your killer feature, I would say. Yeah,
let's talk through that a little bit more. Ben, talk to a little bit about, I know you're going to go into the model.
There is a bit of a slide later on, but yeah, there is what we allow Balmain to do because they have stores in the US and a warehouse, and they're incorporated. So instead of crossing the border in a B2C mode, where you basically pay duties for the price of the sale, you can cross the border in a B2B mode, so between 2 entities of the same group. And this allows you to save quite some money because instead of paying the duties on the price of the sale, it will be based on the price of the intra-group price, so the purchasing price, which is usually depend on in the industry. Sometimes it's less different, but at least in fashion and especially for luxury brands, it makes a huge difference. So it's significant saving. It can range from 3 to 10% of the margin that is saved on the duties. So in some geographies, it's very key. And for Balmain, it was really important, I think, to do it in the US because they would have lost or spent a lot of money in duties, while now they're saving quite some money.
Yes, we have a dedicated slide. Maybe you want to display it.
Talk about it a bit later.
So yes, like Ben said, the idea is you are on balmain.com US, you buy something, it is allocated, for example, to my French warehouse. Then physically the flow is I will ship from France to the US normally, but financially speaking, the French entity is selling to the US entity, and then the US entity is selling to the end-to-end customer, meaning that also the money would go to the US entity. It's also important to keep them in the flow because US customers are the US entity customers.
Yes.
That's also very important.
I think it's also important to mention that for some bigger groups, there is a big notion of attribution. Pretty often, like the digital was a separated business unit, so they will get most of the reward for a good, a good digital channel. While doing that, as everything falls into the local P&L, it's really helping local teams to get the rewards for all the marketing efforts and customer efforts they are doing. So it's usually pretty welcome by local teams.
And maybe a last point is the force of Glopal is Balmain is selling the product to the end customer, not a partner in the middle, not a merchant of record. That was extremely important, meaning that you won't receive an invoice from another partner. You receive a Balmain invoice, and it's important for the brand to keep this line all the time.
Mm-hmm. I think because, for Balmain, the brand and the brand experience you've created is very unique and is very important. So you really it was a really important thing for you to keep Balmain all across the buyer experience.
Correct, and non-negotiable.
And being as well able to leverage your local presence and show that, it's a bit seamless.
Totally.
Good. We probably one last point about what you have achieved during that project. I think you get a very good, we mentioned, we touched it, but you get a very good sell-through on your general inventory. Despite the fact that you are multi-local, and we all know that allocating stock in the right region is always a challenge. You never know before, especially in the luxury, when you get new collections, and you never know where it will really sell. Like, you can have good guesses, but it's never a science. So it's very important to be able to get, with multiple warehouse, the same experience and maximize your sell-through. So can you tell us more, probably a bit, like, how do you ship and how do you return to optimize?
Well, the most important thing is, thanks to Glopal, I don't have to pre-allocate my orders, meaning that, of course, I have to attach it to a warehouse at the beginning, but I can reallocate it, like I said before. And this is, one of the killing features of Glopal. I'm not forced to pre-allocate, and then I can reuse whatever the stock I want. We have algorithm, of course, to choose where is the most interesting for the customer or the brand to ship from. And yes, that was one of the best features from Glopal. And same for return is a bit more complicated. We have two ways of returning a product at Balmain. If there is no cross-border, you have a pre-printed shipping label included in your parcel, so you can just stick it and that's it. For cross-border, it's not the same thing because we have to declare to the customs what's going to be returned. And so for that, we have a portal. And so the customer just click, and then Glopal is able to calculate and generate a return label with everything included in one QR code. So it doesn't have to print all the custom labels, etc., all the certificates. It's super efficient.
Good. We touched this, so I won't go back to it, but maybe you can tell us what's next for Balmain.
Well, the next big project, of course, is Balmain Beauty, with this partnership with Estée Lauder. You will see it, hopefully, next year. We still going to invest also on NFTs, even if the market is not so well, but we continue our partnership with Space Runners. Printemps.com will also be our next marketplace. Minto is already live, and even if the market is a bit low now, we continue investing a lot in the US stores we recently opened, Dallas and Atlanta.
Charles, what will the localized marketing become in the US? Is that something that you're recommending that there is, again, more localized marketing to U.S. consumers?
Well, Balmain is mainly focused on digital. So yes, we have a lot of advertising directed to US customers, and even some of our capsules are not dedicated, but we know that, for example, the Barbie capsule, we know that it's going to sell in the US. So the US is always a target, and yes, definitely you have to do dedicated marketing. That's
I was surprised to hear
critical.
that you have a Barbie capsule collection at Balmain.
Well, it lasts maybe 24 hours. It was crazy.
That's great.
And it was a year before the movie, so it's not even due to the movie.
Oh, wow. Okay. Great. Well, and again, great to see that there's a store opening in Dallas, and is this the New York store?
It's Atlanta.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
New York, you can just buy.
Sure, yeah.
It's part of the experience. And I forgot to say that we also launched recently a new part of the website dedicated to the brand. So if you have the occasion to navigate, you will have all the story of the brand, of Olivier Rousteing, the style of the brand, the collections, everything.
Ben, let me ask you something, because you work with a lot of different brands. I mean, it's great when you hear a story like Charles, where e-commerce and digitalization is the #1 priority. But that's not always the case, right? Again, tell us how you've been,
I think, there is very few brands that are still, like reluctant to digital. Just a very few. We're talking about it with Charles while waiting before coming on stage. Just a very few. The other one, like, there's been a big push, like in the last 5 years or so, that most of the brands really want to recreate the right digital experience. So I think now we work with a dozen of very like high-end brands, and they're all online, and they put quite some effort to. They get high expectation as well, so they do a lot of things like white glove delivery in some area where you get like someone coming with a nice, nicely dressed white gloves, opening the gift for you, and they implement some very specific shipping methods because they are the one that people expect. In some country, which for Loewe, there is some Japanese customers are really keen on cash on delivery. I thought that wasn't the case, right? But in Japan, that's a big thing, and even for luxury goods, so it's pretty unusual. So we always try to help those brands, recreating the experience they want, showing their name everywhere, and being able to just match what their customers are expecting.
That's fantastic, and again, it is good to hear that they are, the luxury brands are making it a priority. Charles, thank you very much, for sharing the Balmain story. It sounds like it's been a
wonderful. Thank you for visiting us.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
And Ben, thank you very much, as well. And I would like to welcome to our next, guest up on stage. Thank you very much.